Welcome to this week's episode of Your Stock Request for the 18th of January. Every week I will look at the charts for a few different stocks as requested by you. Just email us at mail@fairmontequities.com. There's a limit of one per person and no guarantee that your stock will be covered depending on the demand for the week. Also, just make sure that you are sharing this video on Twitter and Facebook. Just hit the little Twitter or Facebook button there. The more requests I get, the more chance I have to filter down to the best ones and share that with everyone else. Also, just take note of our disclaimer. Any advice is general only. Okay, the first stock we have today is James Hardie. So I have a weekly chart here, and you can see that over the last year and a half, it's been trading in a bit of a range and clearly struggling at this sort of $23 region. So if we just zoom in, that becomes pretty clear. Oops. So once again, it's fallen short of this level. Now there is a school of thought that says when a stock makes 4 attempts at a level of resistance, it should then go through. At the moment it looks like it's been heavily sold down. So I think it'll at least head back to these sorts of levels here, at least halfway in the range, to about $20. If it's going to get going, what you'll find is it'll come back usually about sort of halfway or something less than that, and then it will have another go. But I'm just a little bit concerned that this sell-off here was fairly dramatic. So it's not a buy. If it breaks through here, I'd be happy to follow the momentum. But at the moment, I think it'll drift back, and then we'd have to wait to see it turn around, and then potentially we can look at buying it. Okay, the next one I have is WBT, Weebit Nano, not one I've heard of. So this is a weekly chart going back a couple of years, and if I zoom out, you can see that it hasn't done much before that. Might have been a backdoor listing, but either way, what you'll notice is it's essentially formed a bit of a base down here before launching up in the last few months. And have a look at the volume. So very impressive volume, which is a good sign. One rule of thumb is the longer that a stock takes to build a base, the more powerful the move is afterwards. So I think this one's probably only just beginning. I could potentially see more in it. Clearly there's this hurdle from only a few years ago, but I think once it's past that, you'll have a bit of blue sky. So I can't really give any targets, but overall this is looking very positive because I'm quite impressed by the volume, and you should expect to see it head higher. Next DC, NXT. So this is the weekly chart, just zooming out for the last 5 years. You can see it's done very well. It's basically tripled in value in the last 3 or 4 years. It's just coming off a bit here, so we can see that it's started to head up a bit vertically, and now it's seeing a bit of selling pressure. I'll just move to a daily chart and zoom in. So we can see that it seems to have struggled up here near 620, and then the sell-offs have been fairly sharp, and there's been a bit of volume kicking in the last few days. So there is downside on the way for NXT. How much? It's hard to say. Look, the uptrend is still a very good uptrend there, but obviously this price action is fairly negative. The only clear support line would be somewhere around here. That seems like a bit of an obvious zone, sort of around 450. I'm sure holders in NXT would hate to see it lose $1 and head back to where it was only sort of 3 to 6 months ago. Not sure if it'll go back down there, but if it does head down here, then it'd be worth watching to see what it does. If it can sort of launch off this level and resume that uptrend. I've just noticed that there seems to be respecting an uptrend line here, so it might even just fall short and fall to about 510. Okay, InvoCare's the next one. I've traded this one back in the past. At the moment it looks very negative. So we can see this, it's almost like this sort of blow off here in the share price. Big selling pressure, so this is a weekly chart. I'll just zoom in a bit more. So quite a negative sort of reversal there. We could see here it gapped down. It didn't even trade within the range of that prior week. It was just all negative, sort of struggled, just selling pressure. So not looking good, that's for sure. Targets. This one also seems to respect a trend line. It'll probably come back down to 15, but it might just do a little bit of a bounce, and it could be at risk of falling further. So there's been a very good trend in this stock. It looks like it's going to test that. And at best, I think, given the sharpness here, it might just consolidate for a while. So 2018 might be a bit of a lost year for IBC. It might just not really go anywhere until it finds its feet again. Super retail, like most retailers, they've had a pretty good several weeks there. So this is a weekly chart going back 3 years. We can see that there was some resistance here forming over the last 6 months, and then it's just finally popped through that. So I'd expect further upside for super retail. Would I buy it here? Well, there's probably enough upside that it could warrant a bit of a trade. Place his stops under here. I'm still just a bit wary of the sector, and there's just a lot of resistance that it's going to get around these levels. So these peaks here. So there's just a lot of price action. So it should try to head up into this zone, and then it'll struggle a bit. If you want a bit more of an exact target, we could apply a bit of Elliott wave. So this looks like wave 1, 2, and this will be wave 3, the powerful part of the move. So what we do is we measure wave 1. Wave 3 could be about 1.6 times usually, okay, which puts us right in the middle of this zone. I'll just zoom out. It could even extend wave 3, like we've seen with some of the commodity stocks, but this sector isn't as hot as the commodity sector at the moment, so I can't see it extending all the way up to $12 and just pushing through. So I think it'll be more in the sort of 10 to 10.50 region as an upside target for super retail. And finally, sorry guys, wrong one. Genworth is our final request. Just very, very poor price action, clearly going nowhere. We've got these sort of lower highs. Looks like we've got slightly higher lows. So it's obviously saying to us, big triangle. Where to from here? I mean, we could try to trade this range, but it's starting to tighten up, and there's risk that it sort of breaks under here. So if you want to buy it at the bottom of the range and then it breaks, you could get a fairly swift move, which means a fairly swift loss. I couldn't be trading the range here. If it clearly breaks under here, we're going to retest down here, which is that 2016 low. Otherwise, you'd have to wait for a bit of an upside break. So just not the sort of price action and range that I'd be comfortable trading. Well, that's it for today. Remember, send in your requests for next week, and do the right thing, share the page, and we'll get some more stock requests coming through.